Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Best English Podcast. I'm your host, Sophia, and today I am absolutely thrilled to have you join me today. If you're new to our channel, I want to say, you didn't find us by accident. You're here because you want to grow, to learn, to become a better version of yourself. And you're not alone on that journey. We share meaningful educational videos every single day because we believe that a little knowledge, shared with love, can truly change lives. So if you're ready to take that next step, to learn something new, to feel inspired, and to believe in your own potential, then stay with us. Sats our orders. Subscribe and let's walk this path of growth together, one day at a time. You know, in our past episodes, we've talked a lot about building your vocabulary, making your grammar stronger, and even how to start speaking with more confidence and less hesitation. But today, we're taking an even deeper dive. A laser-focused look into what many of you, my wonderful listeners, tell me is often the toughest skill to truly master for intermediate learners: listening. It's the one that determines if you feel completely connected to a conversation or subtly isolated from it. And guess what? We put out brand new shows every single day, so you'll always have something fresh, something engaging, something specifically designed to help make your English even better, little by little, day by day. Have you ever felt like you're doing great with your English? You can read articles, write emails, present your ideas clearly. But then you jump into a real conversation or try to watch a movie without subtitles, and suddenly, everything just sounds like one big, fast, blurry mess. It's like you understand the individual words, but the whole meaning gets lost in a rush of sound. You're past the basics, you know your grammar, you have a decent vocabulary, but that effortless, real-time comprehension still feels just out of reach. If that sounds familiar, if you're an intermediate English learner who feels stuck in that frustrating gap between knowing English and truly understanding it in the wild, fast-paced world of natural speech, then you are in the absolutely perfect place today. Stick with me through this entire episode because we're going to uncover exactly why listening can feel like such a persistent challenge for intermediate learners. Those of you who are past the beginner stage, who understand the grammar rules, who know a good amount of words, but still struggle with natural, fast, and often tricky English speech. I'll share some powerful, real-life strategies and plenty of targeted practice. Strategies based on the very experiences of real people like Emily, David, Mike, Clara, and Dr. Sarah Chen. Strategies that will help you truly crack the code of natural English speech and bridge that gap to confident, effortless understanding. So, get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee, and let's get started on this journey to transform your listening skills. You know, for many English learners who are already quite good at the language, who have achieved that solid intermediate level, listening often feels like the final hardest thing to truly get right. It's a common story I hear. You've worked so incredibly hard. You can read complex articles, you can draft detailed emails, you can even have a good, solid conversation when given a little time to think, to mentally prepare your sentences. But then, when native speakers just talk easily, at their usual flowing speed, with all their informal words, their quick sayings, and their natural, spontaneous rhythm, or when you try to enjoy a movie or a TV show without needing the words on the screen, it can still feel like hitting a very frustrating, invisible wall. It's perplexing. The words seem to run together. Different ways of speaking can be a real puzzle, and the whole point of what someone is trying to say just seems to evaporate into the air, leaving you feeling upset and, honestly, a bit defeated. It's like you're so close. You're almost there, but there's still this persistent, subtle gap. This is what I call the intermediate listening paradox. You know so much English, but you can't fully hear it. Why is listening especially hard for intermediate learners? Why does this paradox exist? It's not just about how fast people talk, though that's certainly a significant part of it, isn't it? The real problems, the deeper, more pervasive ones, are often more subtle, more sneaky. They're hidden right inside the very fabric of the way we actually speak English, not just in the dictionary definitions of individual words. Let's look at some of these unclear hurdles, these tricky bits, that often cause intermediate learners to stumble and feel stuck. Firstly, a major culprit is what we call connected speech. Now, imagine you're reading a book. Each word is clearly separated, isn't it? Each word has its own distinct space, its own defined meaning. It's neat, it's organized, it's predictable. But that's simply not how we talk in real life. In normal, everyday spoken English, words often just join and mix into each other. It's like they become one long, flowing river of sound, instead of separate little islands. You might know going to as two distinct words, clear and separate. But when you hear gonna, it's a completely different sound, isn't it? It sounds like one fluid unit, or want to, smoothly becoming wanna. This fascinating phenomenon, where sounds connect, get left out, or even change entirely because of the sounds next to them, includes a few different processes that are crucial for intermediate learners to recognize. For instance, there's assimilation. This is when a sound changes to become more like a sound right next to it, almost blending into its neighbor. Think about the common phrase, don't know. When people say it quickly, the T sound at the end of don't often changes because of the K sound at the beginning of know. It might end up sounding a bit like donk no or dom no. Or consider 10 points. Very often, it sounds more like 10 points because the N sound in 10 takes on the quality of the P sound in points. Changing it to annum sound. This isn't sloppy speech, it's just how our mouths efficiently move from one sound to the next. It's subtle, but it happens all the time in natural conversation. Then there's elision. This is when a sound is completely left out. It just disappears from a word when we speak quickly and naturally. For example, the T in next time might just vanish, making it sound more like next time. Another extremely common one is in fish and chips. Very often you'll hear it as fish and chips, where the D sound in and simply disappears, or the V sound in of frequently disappears, making cup of tea sound like cup of tea, or lots of fun, sounding like lots of fun. We also have linking R. This happens when a word ends in an R sound and the very next word starts with a vowel sound. The R sound at the end of the first word actually connects right to the vowel sound at the start of the next word, making them flow together seamlessly. Think of far away. Us. We don't usually say far away with a distinct pause. It often sounds more like far away, almost as if it were one single word. Another example is clear up. When said quickly, it becomes clear up. This connection helps our speech flow more smoothly, preventing choppy, unnatural pauses. And then there's reduction. This is perhaps one of the most significant challenges for intermediate learners. This is when vowel sounds in words get weaker and shorter. often turning into that very small, soft sound, which linguists call the schwa sound. This happens especially in words that are not emphasized in a sentence, words that aren't carrying the main meaning. This makes words like for sound like fur and from sound like from when we're chatting quickly. Or think of to. In I have to go, the to often reduces to a very quick ta, sounding like have to go. This is particularly tricky because words you know suddenly sound completely different. These sound changes are totally normal, completely natural, and highly efficient for native speakers. They're what make our speech fluid and fluent. But for you, as an intermediate learner, they can feel like a solid wall. It might make it seem as if words are missing, or that what you're hearing is totally different from what you saw written in your English textbook. You know the words individually, but you don't hear them how you expect, and that can be incredibly confusing and demoralizing. This is the weak form versus strong form phenomenon, and it's essential for intermediate learners to grasp. Many common unstressed words like prepositions, auxiliary verbs, and conjunctions have a weak form, a very reduced sound used in connected speech, and a strong form that is only used when the word is emphasized or spoken alone. For example, can is usually heard as kun in a sentence like I can do it. But when emphasized, it's can as in yes, I can do it. For is often satam far, but sacha fo are when strong. Recognizing these weak forms is paramount. To truly show you what I mean about these weak forms and connected speech, let's try a quick practice right now, together. I'm going to say a common sentence twice. First, listen for how you expect to hear the words. Then listen to how they might sound naturally, with weak forms and connections. Listen to sentence 1. What do you want to do? Or now, listen to it said naturally as one flowing sound. What do you want to do? Notice how what do you became what'ya and want to became wanna. Listen to sentence 2. Where are you from? Now, naturally, where are ya from? Here are reduces to and you to ya. Listen to sentence 3. I have to go now. Were. Now, naturally, I have to go now. Here, have to reduces to hafta. Did you notice how those very common words like do, you, are, from, and have to completely changed their sound when unstressed and connected? Your job as an intermediate listener is to train your ear, little by little, to automatically spot these common shortened words and seamless connections. It's not about speaking this way necessarily, though it can certainly help your fluency and sound more natural, but primarily about understanding it instantly. The more you hear it, the more your brain will just naturally figure it out without you even trying too hard. And the less fuzzy or unclear spoken English will sound to you. It will start to make perfect sense, even at speed. Secondly, intonation and stress are super important, not just for basic meaning, but for truly understanding the speaker's nuances and attitude. English is what we call a stressed-timed language. This means that certain syllables within words and certain words within a sentence are given more power, more emphasis. They stand out, carrying the main message, while other words are spoken softly, quickly, and often reduced, like those weak forms we just discussed. The way our voices go up and down, that's intonation. And it also tells you about feelings, about what the speaker plans to do, and sometimes even helps clarify the grammar of a sentence. For intermediate learners, Missing these cues can lead to misunderstanding emotion or sarcasm, which is crucial in real conversations. Consider a simple statement like, "He really enjoys learning." If I stress really, I'm emphasizing the intensity of his enjoyment. But if I said, "He really enjoys learning," I'm stressing the act of enjoyment itself, perhaps contrasting it with something he doesn't enjoy. Intonation also helps define thought groups. Native speakers break their speech into smaller, meaningful chunks, almost like punctuation for the ears. For example, when I went to the store, I saw my old friend. There's a slight pause, a change in pitch, after store that helps separate the two ideas. If you try to process an entire long sentence as one continuous stream, you'll struggle. Learning to identify these thought groups helps you break down complex sentences into manageable, understandable units. Let's take a sentence. I can't believe he said that. If I say it with a strong, rising tone on that and a slight gasp, it implies shock or outrage. If I say it with a flat, downward tone on that and a sigh, it might imply disappointment or resignation. It's quite a maze, isn't it? All those hidden meanings and emotional layers conveyed through stress and intonation. If you only focus on understanding single individual words, you can completely miss these very important layers of meaning that intonation and stress give. For intermediate learners, tuning into these subtle vocal cues is often the key to truly understanding what the speaker wants to communicate beyond just the literal words they use. It adds a whole new, profound dimension to your comprehension, allowing you to pick up on sarcasm, humor, and hidden implications. Core strategies for intermediate mastery: advanced active listening. Now, let's look at how to tackle these specific challenges with targeted strategies. So, how do we actually start training your ear in this powerful way? How do we truly close this gap between the neat, organized English, from books, and the fast-flowing, sometimes messy, sometimes emotionally charged English people speak in real life? The answer comes down to something called active listening, which is a very, very different skill from just quietly hearing things. Many learners, and it's completely understandable, often just do what I call passive listening. Mraitarans. This means having English sounds playing in the background while you're doing something else entirely, maybe cleaning your house, commuting to work, or simply scrolling through your phone. While passive listening does have some good points, it helps you get used to the general rhythm and background sound of English, kind of like soaking in the atmosphere. It doesn't really help much with truly understanding more complex ideas or faster natural speech. Your brain just isn't focused enough, it's not engaged enough to really figure out the deeper meaning or to learn new tricky ways of speaking when it's trying to do many things at once. It's like trying to learn a complicated song by only hearing it very softly from another room. You'll catch the tune, but not the lyrics or the subtle instrumental details. Active listening, on the other hand, demands your full attention, your complete focus, and it uses special mental tricks, special techniques, to get the most understanding out of what you hear. It's about really working with the sound, even if that work is just happening in your head, moment by moment. Think of it as putting your brain into detective mode, constantly looking for clues, making connections between sounds and meanings, and taking in information purposefully. This is precisely where intermediate learners truly make big, noticeable leaps forward in their listening comprehension. It's an intentional practice, not a casual one. Within active listening, we can see two powerful ways to do it, two distinct but complementary approaches that are especially effective for intermediate learners. intensive listening and extensive listening. Both are incredibly important for learners at your stage, and they help in different yet very useful ways. Intensive listening is like using a powerful microscope on a tiny, specific detail. You focus incredibly closely on very small parts of audio, often just a few seconds or a minute of sound, and you really take them apart, piece by piece. The goal here is a super deep, almost microscopic understanding of every single word, every tiny detail, every subtle sound change, and every nuance of intonation. You're not worried about speed when you're doing this. Your priority is being exact, detailed, and completely thorough in your understanding. This is the practice where you frequently press pause, go back a few seconds, play again, and even look up words or phrases you don't immediately get. It's a slow, careful, methodical process, but it builds the fundamental building blocks, the core components, of truly understanding fast, natural speech. This is precisely where you practice recognizing connected speech, identifying the weak forms of words, finding the words that are emphasized, and understanding specific vocabulary you might not have known. It's foundational work for intermediate learners. Let me tell you about David, a brilliant university student from Seattle, who very cleverly used intensive listening to fix a specific problem he was having: understanding complex academic lectures at speed. David was getting ready for a student exchange program to an American university, and while he was excited, he was also quite anxious about the academic demands. He was pretty good at normal, everyday conversations. He could get by. But he struggled a lot with academic talks in school, especially those given by professors with fast American accents who used lots of specialized vocabulary. He felt that the combination of technical words, mixed with the quick speaking speed and complex sentence structures, made it almost impossible for him to take meaningful notes or even follow the main points of what was being said. He told me with clear frustration, "Sophia, I feel like I only hear every fourth word. My brain can't keep up. By the time I understand one sentence, they're already 3 sentences ahead. I'm completely lost, and I can't effectively learn." No, I told David he needed to master intensive listening. I advised him to practice with short segments of university lectures he could easily find online, ideally with accompanying transcripts or subtitles. His method was incredibly detailed, very systematic, and ultimately proved to be highly effective. Selecting the right audio. David chose content that was slightly above his current comfortable listening level. This meant academic podcasts or lectures that he could mostly understand, but still contained new vocabulary and fast speech. Crucially, he made sure these resources had accurate transcripts available, even if he didn't use them immediately. Content with multiple speakers, like academic panels, was also good for hearing different paces and tones. Pre-listening. Preparing the mind. Before his first listen, David didn't just listen for the overall gist. He would read the title or a short summary of the lecture and try to predict the argument structure or the roles of the speakers. For example, if it's a debate, I expect to hear opposing viewpoints. If it's a research presentation, I expect introduction, methods, results, conclusion. This helped prime his brain for what to expect. First pass, global comprehension. He would listen to a short 1 to 2 minute segment of the lecture just one time, without looking at any words on the screen or a written copy, simply trying to get the overall topic, the main gist, and the general flow of ideas. This initial listen helps you grasp the big picture without getting bogged down in individual word struggles. Second pass, targeted keywords and phrases. He would then listen to that same short piece again, this time trying to actively pick out any main keywords, important technical terms, or key phrases that stood out to him, even if he didn't fully understand them yet. He'd quickly jot these down. This step helps in identifying important information and the specific vocabulary that carries significant meaning within the context. Sentence-by-sentence breakdown with transcription challenge. This was the really hard but absolutely crucial part. David would listen to each sentence, or sometimes even just a short phrase, and immediately press pause after it. He would then try to write down exactly what he heard, a process called transcription. He forced himself to listen for those connected speech patterns, the weak forms, the reductions, and to write them out as he heard them, even if they looked wrong. Compared to standard spelling. This process forces your ear to discriminate individual sounds within the rapid flow. After attempting to transcribe a sentence, he would try to say what he heard right after the speaker, mimicking their pronunciation and rhythm. This technique is called shadowing. While shadowing, he wasn't just copying sounds. He was consciously imitating the speaker's rhythm, the specific pausing, the intonation patterns, and the thought groups of native speakers. This helps you sound more natural yourself, and crucially, it directly trains your brain to process speech at native speed. Comparison to transcript, the aha moments. After attempting to transcribe and shadow, David would finally compare his written version with the official transcript. This was often where he had his aha moments. He would meticulously analyze the discrepancies. Why did I hear gonna instead of going to? Oh, it's reduction. Why did I miss that T sound? Ah, elision. He'd highlight the specific phonetic changes and note down why he missed them. Vocabulary beyond definition. For any new words he encountered, especially specialized academic vocabulary, he didn't just look up their basic definitions. He'd check how they were pronounced in context, find a few example sentences of them being used, and try to use them himself in a simple, relevant sentence. He also paid close attention to guide words or discourse markers. These are phrases teachers and speakers use to help listeners follow the structure of their ideas. Things like, firstly, in addition, on the other hand, however, to summarize. Understanding these signals helps you predict what's coming next in the talk. Review and reinforce. After thoroughly breaking down a segment, David would listen to that same 2-minute clip one last time, without any stops or looking at the transcript. The goal here was to simply follow the flow, enjoying the fact that he now understood it so much better than the first time. This final listen helps bring it all together and reinforce the learning, moving the new sounds and patterns into his long-term memory. He would even re-listen to the same segment on subsequent days to ensure the new patterns were truly integrated. David found that this focused, intensive way of listening, even when practiced for just 20 minutes a day, greatly improved his ability to understand fast, complex speech. He wasn't just hearing words anymore. He was actively training his ear to recognize academic vocabulary, common phrases, connected speech, and how ideas were strung together in spoken lectures. When he finally went to the U.S. for his exchange, the university lectures were still challenging, of course, but he no longer felt completely lost. He could truly pay attention, write clear notes, and confidently join in discussions. His ability to listen closely and quickly get used to the unique way academic talks were delivered was a direct result of his dedicated, systematic, intensive listening practice. This is a perfect example of how targeted, active listening can yield significant results for intermediate learners. Let's try a more challenging, intensive listening exercise right now, similar to what David did. It will require close attention. I'm going to read a short, slightly more complex passage about urban planning. Listen very, very carefully. Then I'll ask you to identify some specific details and nuances. One of the perennial challenges in contemporary urban development concerns the seamless integration of eco-friendly infrastructure within existing, often dilapidated cityscapes. Proponents often emphasize the long-term benefits for public health and environmental sustainability. However, a significant hurdle resides in securing adequate funding and navigating the labyrinthine bureaucratic processes. Local residents, meanwhile, frequently articulate concerns regarding potential disruptions to their daily routines and the preservation of community identity. Consequently, successful initiatives invariably necessitate robust stakeholder engagement and innovative financial models. Now, let's test your intensive listening. Don't worry if you didn't get every single word. This was meant to be quite challenging. But let's see how much you caught. Question 1. What is one of the perennial challenges mentioned in urban development? Question 2. What do proponents emphasize as long-term benefits? Question 3. What is a significant hurdle in implementing these initiatives? Question 4. What are two specific concerns articulated by local residents? Question 5. What do successful initiatives invariably necessitate? Take a moment to process. The answers. Answers 1. The seamless integration of eco-friendly infrastructure within existing cityscapes. My. Answers 2. Long-term benefits for public health and environmental sustainability. Answers 3. Securing adequate funding and navigating labyrinthine bureaucratic processes. Answers 4. Herausforderungen. Potential disruptions to their daily routines and the preservation of community identity. Answers 5. Robust stakeholder engagement and innovative financial models. You might also have picked up on some valuable, slightly more formal or academic words and phrases like perennial challenges, contemporary urban development, seamless integration, eco-friendly infrastructure, dilapidated cityscapes, proponents, environmental sustainability. Significant hurdle resides in securing adequate funding, labyrinthine bureaucratic processes, articulate concerns, potential disruptions, preservation of community identity, consequently, successful initiatives, invariably necessitate, robust stakeholder engagement, and innovative financial models. This is the profound power of intensive listening, digging incredibly deep into the language to pull out every bit of meaning, every nuanced phrase, every academic term, and to actively grow your sophisticated word knowledge and your ability to understand complex spoken ideas. This is exactly what intermediate learners need to do to move to the next level of comprehension and confidence. Extensive listening, by contrast, is like looking at a whole big, wide view from a mountaintop. You listen to longer pieces of sound, like entire podcast shows, substantial parts of audiobooks, full news reports, or even documentaries, with the main goal of just getting the general idea, following the narrative, and simply enjoying the content. You're not stopping all the time or painstakingly looking up every single word. The focus is on getting the main point, following the overall story or argument, and simply taking in the language for a longer, sustained period of time. It helps you build your ability to listen for longer periods without feeling overwhelmed, and it helps you feel more sure of yourself in general comprehension, making English feel more natural and comfortable overall. It's about immersion, building stamina, and fostering a love for the language. For intermediate learners, a balanced diet of both intensive and extensive listening is usually the absolute best plan, a truly holistic approach. Set aside specific, shorter times for intensive listening, maybe 15 to 20 minutes a few times a week, where you truly focus and look closely at the language, dissecting it for every detail. Then, complement that with longer, more relaxed times of extensive listening, perhaps 30 to 60 minutes every day, where you just enjoy the content, letting yourself go with the natural flow of the language without constant interruption. This balanced approach will give you both the deep, granular understanding and the broad, fluent exposure you need to advance significantly. Advanced hurdles and targeted solutions. Let's move on to some advanced hurdles and how to specifically target them for intermediate learners. As you get better and better at your English listening, you'll definitely come across the beautiful, yet sometimes confusing, many different ways of the English language. This includes a huge range of accents from different countries, regions, and social groups, and an endless flow of common phrases, informal words, and local ways of speaking. These are the things that truly make English a living, breathing, diverse language, full of personality. But they can also be significant stumbling blocks for intermediate learners, even when you know the words individually. Let me reintroduce you to Mike, our English learner from Boston, who faced this challenge head-on. Mike embarked on an exciting adventure by moving to a small rural town in the picturesque countryside of Ireland for a new engineering job. Mike had diligently practiced with standard British English materials and learned a very clean, formal type of English. But when he arrived in Ireland, he found himself immersed in a rich, vibrant language puzzle, a real mix of words, rhythms, and expressions he hadn't fully prepared for. The local Irish accent was strong, quite fast, and absolutely full of local sayings and colloquialisms he'd never heard before. He first felt completely alone socially, despite being able to handle his work conversations. Sophia, he wrote to me in a very upset email. I understand my coworkers perfectly in meetings, especially about engineering topics. But when we go to the pub after work, it's a completely different language. They say things like, "What's the crack?" or "He's a gas man." And I just stare blankly. I smile and nod, but inside, I feel like I'm missing out on half of life here, half of the connection. Oh, Mike's story perfectly shows the problem of different ways of speaking English in different places. He wasn't just fighting to understand an unfamiliar accent. He was also facing a rich blend, a colorful mix of local informal words and common phrases that are deeply embedded in the culture. I explained to Mike that he needed to train his ear to distinguish between accents, not just generally understand them. He needed to identify the unique phonetic shifts, vowel pronunciations, and stress patterns that characterize different regional accents. I advised him to actively seek out specific audio exposure. He started by focusing on Irish accents, looking for local Irish radio shows, community news podcasts, and even local storytelling podcasts. He also committed to asking for clarification. He practiced simple phrases like, "Could you say that again, please?" Or, "What does crack mean exactly?" I reassured him that most local people are happy to explain their unique phrases to someone who's genuinely trying to learn. What truly helped Mike was a method he started doing every single evening. He would find local Irish comedy shows or popular talk shows online, often starting with transcripts. He'd watch them first with English subtitles, then watch them again without. He paid incredibly close attention to the jokes and punchlines, trying to figure out which specific words or phrases were causing the laughter, realizing these were often idiomatic expressions. He found out that crack meant news, gossip, or general fun, and gas man meant someone who was very funny or entertaining. He also started noticing how the intonation patterns of the Irish accent worked, how certain words were stressed, and how vowels were pronounced differently. For instance, he noted how the oo sound in words like house might be pronounced differently in an Irish accent compared to an American one. Over time, he started noticing clear patterns, and the distinct rhythm of the Irish accent began to sound less like a confusing jumble and more like a unique form of music that he could follow. Eventually, Mike wasn't just understanding the talks at the pub, he was truly taking part, even sometimes using a well-placed Irish common phrase himself, making his coworkers very happy and truly feeling like a part of the community. His journey shows that truly getting into the culture through focused, varied listening is key to understanding regional differences, even for intermediate learners. Systematic accent exposure. Don't just listen to generic English. Actively seek out specific regional accents you might encounter. For example, explore different American regional accents: Southern, New England, Californian. Listen to various British accents: RP, Cockney, Scottish, Irish. YouTube channels that feature interviews with people from different regions are excellent for this. Many podcasts focus on stories from specific places, allowing you to immerse yourself in local speech. Focus on vowel sounds. Vowels are often the biggest differentiators between accents. Pay close attention to how speakers pronounce words like bath, dance, car, or hot. Listen for how the mouth position changes. Imitate for recognition. You don't have to speak in an accent, but trying to imitate some of the sounds or rhythms can actually help your brain recognize them better when you hear them. Shadowing with different accents can be very effective. Let's try a quick accent recognition exercise. I'm going to say a very short phrase. Try to identify the accent. I can't believe it's almost time for tea. Did you hear a particular quality there? That would be a standard British accent. Now how about this? Y'all come back now, you hear? That would be a Southern American accent. Recognizing these distinct sounds and rhythms comes from varied exposure. Now, let's talk about idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang. These are perhaps the hardest parts of spoken English for intermediate learners because their meaning is often completely non-literal and they are deeply embedded in culture. Idioms are phrases where the meaning isn't clear from the individual words themselves, and you simply have to learn them as a whole unit. For example, kick the bucket means to die. It has nothing to do with actually kicking a bucket. Phrasal verbs are another massive hurdle. They combine a verb with a preposition or adverb, and the meaning is often totally different from the individual words. Think of put up with, look up to, take off. In none, their meanings are incredibly varied and often unpredictable. Slang is informal language, often specific to a particular group or a certain time period, things like cool, awesome, or hang out. They're absolutely everywhere in natural conversation, from the office to the coffee shop, and understanding them is key to truly blending in. Let me revisit Clara's experience. As a skilled graphic designer in New York City, she excelled in professional English, but her struggles with social conversation, even after improving her core listening, were often rooted in idiomatic language. She'd understand the individual words of a joke or a casual comment, but miss the punchline or the true sentiment because of a phrasal verb or an idiom. This affected her ability to contribute quickly and meaningfully to social banter. She'd tell me, "Sophia, I understood that he was going somewhere, but then they said he really took off after the meeting, and I didn't know if he was angry or just left quickly or flew a plane." This is where understanding the cultural code of English becomes vital. Context is everything, and I mean everything. Always, always try to guess the meaning from the words around it, the situation, and the speaker's tone. If someone says, "I'm on cloud 9 today, I just got a promotion," you can pretty safely guess on cloud 9 means very, very happy. This skill of inferring meaning from context is absolutely critical for intermediate learners. Don't stop at the first phrase you don't understand. Keep listening, see the whole picture, look for clues. Focus on high-frequency idioms and phrasal verbs. Don't try to learn every single one at once. Start with the most common ones. There are many great lists online of the top 100 or 200 most frequent idioms and phrasal verbs. Dedicate time to these. Keep a phrasebook or a digital note system. When you come across a new idiom, phrasal verb, or bit of slang, make a note of it, write it down. Then, very importantly, try to find its meaning and then notice how it's used in different example sentences and situations. You can find many great online idiom dictionaries or apps that provide examples. Soak up authentic content. Movies, TV shows, conversational podcasts, and even stand-up comedy are absolutely full of idioms and slang. Watching with English subtitles first can really help you connect the spoken sound to the written phrase, then watch the same content again without subtitles. This allows you to hear them used naturally in various situations, which is how they truly stick in your mind and become part of your understanding. Pay attention to who uses them and in what situations to understand the register or formality level. Understand phrasal verb nuance. For phrasal verbs, notice that a slight change in the particle can completely change the meaning. Look up is different from look down on. Take off means to leave, but also for a plane to depart or for something to become successful very quickly. Learn them as units. Don't overdo it in your speaking initially. As an intermediate learner, it's generally better to focus on understanding idioms and slang than to try and force them into your own speech, especially when you're not entirely sure how to use them. Using them incorrectly can sound really unnatural or even funny to native speakers. Start by making sure you understand them when you hear them, and then, if you feel confident, try gradually incorporating only the simple common ones you hear all the time. Let's try a quick practice with both idioms and phrasal verbs. I'll say a short sentence, and your job is to try and figure out the meaning of the highlighted phrase. The new manager laid off 10 employees last week. What does laid off mean here? It means to dismiss employees from their jobs, often temporarily, usually because there's not enough work. After working all day, I just wanted to chill out on the couch. What does chill out mean? It means to relax or calm down. He always looks up to his older brother for advice. What does looks up to mean? It means to admire or respect someone. When the new product launched, it took off immediately and became a huge success. What does took off mean here? It means became very successful or popular very quickly. I tried to explain the situation, but he just kept beating around the bush. What does beating around the bush mean? It means avoiding the main point or topic, usually because you don't want to say something directly. These are very common idioms and phrasal verbs that you'll hear often. The more you hear them in context, the more they'll just become a natural part of what you understand, and you won't even have to consciously think about their individual parts. Finally, let's address processing speed and responsive speaking, the real-time challenge. Making your listening skills better isn't just about passive understanding, it's deeply connected to becoming more fluent and sure of yourself when you speak. For intermediate learners, the biggest hurdle here is often the lag time between hearing something and formulating a response. Think of listening as the high-quality fuel and speaking as the powerful engine. You absolutely need good fuel for the engine to run smoothly, powerfully, and efficiently, right? The faster and more accurately you process spoken input, the faster and more naturally you'll be able to respond. Let's revisit Clara's experience, our skilled graphic designer from New York City. Even after improving her overall comprehension, she still faced this real-time challenge. She'd understand the words, but her brain would still be processing, identifying weak forms, figuring out idioms, and trying to parse the meaning, leaving little mental bandwidth for formulating a quick, natural response. She'd miss her window to contribute. Her brain was effectively running behind the conversation. Her problem was a classic case of low processing speed and insufficient listening memory. Her brain was still really working hard to figure out each individual word and phrase, leaving very little mental energy or time for her to quickly think up a natural, spontaneous answer. It was like her mental RAM was full with just processing the input, with nothing left for output. I told her she needed to focus on getting better at active processing skills by listening intensely and then immediately summarizing what she heard, and also by practicing rapid response drills. This would actively speed up her reaction time. Her daily plan involved listening to short, 3 to 5 minute parts of conversational podcasts, interviews, or even YouTube vlogs featuring natural dialogue. Her refined method was very structured and effective. Active prediction. Before listening, she wouldn't just think about the main idea. She'd actively try to predict what kind of language might be used, what typical questions or responses might come up based on the topic. For example, if it was an interview about career paths, she'd anticipate questions about challenges, successes, or future plans. This primes the brain to process faster. Listen and identify main points and speaker attitude. She'd listen to a short segment just once, then immediately try to write down 2 to 3 main ideas or underlying feelings, attitudes that came across. Was the speaker enthusiastic, skeptical, humorous? Shadowing with intention for speed. She would then pick a specific 30-second to 1-minute bit from that audio and shadow it. This meant she tried to speak along with the original speaker, mimicking their speed, their rhythm, their intonation patterns, and how their voice goes up and down. The goal here was to match the pace. When you shadow, you're not just copying sounds. You're actively engaging the muscles in your mouth and brain to process at native speed. This helps you sound more natural yourself, and crucially, it directly trains your brain to process speech at native speed, reducing that lag time. Summarize out loud, the instant response drill. After shadowing a segment, she'd stop the audio and immediately try to sum up what she had just heard out loud in her own words. She focused on keeping her answer short, natural, and to the point, as if she were responding in a real conversation within a tight time frame. She even recorded herself doing this sometimes, so she could listen back and critically assess her speed and coherence. This directly built her listening memory, that crucial ability to keep spoken information in her mind long enough to formulate and deliver a confident answer without losing the thread of the conversation. Response drills, simulated dialogue. Clara would find short audio clips that ended with a question or a prompt. She would listen to the prompt, pause, and then immediately try to formulate and speak a response within a set time limit, say 10 to 15 seconds. This simulated the pressure of real-time conversation. Retelling stories and arguments. She'd listen to a short story or a simple two-sided argument, and then immediately try to retell the story or summarize both sides of the argument in her own words, focusing on speed and coherent delivery. This pushed her beyond just understanding to actively producing information quickly. This focused practice, especially the shadowing and the summarizing response drills, truly made Clara's brain work faster to take in information and quickly find the right words to respond. It really built her listening memory, that crucial ability to keep spoken information in her mind long enough to formulate and deliver a confident answer without losing the thread of the conversation. Within a few months, Clara noticed a significant difference. During social gatherings, she was still taking a moment to think before speaking, but that moment was much, much shorter. She started joining in with insightful comments, asking more relevant questions, and even adding her own small stories or jokes at the right time, not just reacting to old points. She wasn't just understanding anymore. She was taking part, becoming an active and valued member of the social conversation. The wall between her and her colleagues slowly began to fall down. Her confidence grew a lot, and she started enjoying social chats in English like never before. Her story shows how targeted listening practice, when specifically linked to actually speaking, like summarizing and shadowing, can directly and dramatically help your ability to talk easily and naturally, reducing that processing gap. Let's try a short practice that focuses on listening for understanding a short conversation and then formulating a quick response. I'm going to play a very short dialogue. After it, I will ask you a question, and I want you to try and answer it out loud, as quickly and naturally as you can. Dialogue. Hey, did you catch the game last night? It was a real nail-biter. Oh no, I missed it. Was it good? Absolutely. Went into overtime, and then they won by a single point in the last second. Now, quickly, what was the game like, and what was the final result? Try to answer out loud immediately. Did you say it was exciting, a close game, and they won in overtime by 1 point? If so, great job. That quick processing and response is what we're aiming for. Cultivating a listening lifestyle. The ultimate goal for getting better and better at your English listening skills, especially for intermediate learners, is to make it a steady, enjoyable, and consistent part of your everyday life. It should become a habit that you actually look forward to, something you genuinely enjoy, not something that feels like a chore or something you dread. This steady, consistent practice is totally key for long-term success, especially as you move past the intermediate stage and aim for advanced fluency. Dr. Sarah Chen, our famous medical researcher from California, truly shows what a lifelong, dedicated way of listening looks like in practice, even at the highest levels. Her journey with English started as a child with normal school lessons, but her deep passion for discovering new scientific breakthroughs led her to pursue higher education and work in environments where English was the main language for academics, research, and international collaboration. In her early career, she meticulously used intensive listening, breaking down complex lectures. But as she moved into leadership roles, her listening evolved further. She needed to not only understand scientific concepts, but also to grasp the intent behind subtle questions, to read between the lines, to pick up on cultural nuances in multinational teams, and to quickly synthesize information from diverse accents in real-time high-stakes discussions. This is where her listening became not just about comprehension, but about true cross-cultural communication and leadership. Dr. Chen understood that her ambition in medical research needed not just a sharp mind for data and analysis, but also amazing advanced communication skills, especially highly attuned listening. She didn't look for a quick fix. Instead, she committed to decades of consistent, deliberate work to make her listening abilities better and better, even when she was already considered fluent. Her personal listening plan was comprehensive, multifaceted, and it was always changing and adapting as she progressed through her career. As she moved forward, Dr. Chen naturally transitioned even more towards extensive listening as a daily lifestyle. She signed up for science podcasts from all over the world, not just in her own specific area of medical research, but across many different scientific topics, to widen her overall understanding of science discussions and diverse speaking styles. She watched every science documentary she could find, paying close attention to how clear the narrators were and how the complex information flowed logically. She even listened to audiobooks about history, biographies, or even classic literature during long flights or her daily commute, not just for pure enjoyment, but to constantly fill her mind with real, authentic English narratives, exposing herself to varied vocabulary and sentence structures. She specifically sought out content that challenged her ear with different accents and speech rates. A very clear, defining moment happened during a big international medical conference, a highlight of her career. Dr. Chen was leading an important discussion group after presenting her groundbreaking research to a global audience. A well-known, highly respected professor from Australia, known for his very unique way of speaking and dry, subtle humor, asked a complicated, multi-layered question about her research findings. In the past, Dr. Chen might have stumbled, perhaps politely asking him to repeat or clarify, but years of dedicated, varied listening had finally tuned her ear to adjust instantly to different accents and quickly process complex questions, picking up on the humorous subtext. She not only understood his question perfectly, catching the subtle humor and underlying meaning, but also gave a precise, clear, and articulate answer that smoothly dealt with all his points, using some of the advanced academic language she had absorbed through her extensive listening. The sheer ease and confidence with which she handled the discussion and her quick, witty response to the humor were clear to everyone in the room, earning her deep respect and admiration from her peers. Dr. Chen's sustained effort wasn't just about getting over a problem. It became a built-in, integral part of her continuous professional growth and personal development. She never stopped listening, even as she became a very successful and renowned researcher. She understood that language is alive, always changing, always evolving, and that constant, varied listening ensures one stays connected, sharp, and able to adapt to new voices, new phrases, and new ways of speaking. Her story powerfully shows that getting better at English listening is a journey for your whole life, one that brings deep personal satisfaction and immense professional rewards. transforming initial frustration into effortless understanding and confident, impactful communication. It just goes to show that putting consistent time and thoughtful effort into daily, careful listening is perhaps the most valuable single thing an English learner can do for their overall fluency. So, my dear intermediate listeners, as you keep going on your incredible English learning adventure, always remember that your listening skills are the strong, foundational base upon which your smooth talking, your quick responses, and your unshakable confidence will truly be built. Welcome the challenges of words running together, the beautiful variety of different accents, and the sometimes puzzling common phrases that don't mean what they literally say. See them not as problems or obstacles, but as exciting puzzles to solve, as hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Put the powerful, targeted strategies we've talked about today into action in your own daily routine. Balance intensive listening for deep, granular understanding of sounds and structures with extensive listening for broad exposure and overall fluency. Actively practice shadowing to really get your pronunciation, rhythm, and how your voice goes up and down just right, training your mouth and ear to work in harmony. Build your listening memory and speed up your processing by summarizing what you hear in your own words, out loud, under time pressure. Actively look for and engage with many different accents, regional dialects, and authentic, real-world content to make what you understand wider and more adaptable to any situation. And most importantly, be patient and kind to yourself, and always celebrate those small wins on your journey. Every new connected speech pattern you recognize, every idiom you understand, every time you respond a little faster, these are all vital steps forward. Your ear is an amazing tool, capable of incredible adaptation, and your brain is a surprising, powerful processor, ready to learn and grow. With steady, focused effort, careful attention, and a true love for the language, I promise you, you will surely make your listening skills incredibly good, remarkably sharp. You'll find yourself not just hearing isolated words, but truly understanding what people intend, enjoying humor, picking up on subtle emotions, and effortlessly connecting with the rich and varied world of human communication in English. This deep, profound ability will open up countless new opportunities, make your experiences richer and more meaningful, and allow you to move through the English-speaking world with true ease, incredible confidence, and genuine connection. Thank you so very much for joining me today on Best English Podcast. I truly hope this extensive episode has shown you the clear way forward for making your English listening skills better than ever before, and that it has inspired you to make it a lively, ongoing, and enjoyable part of your daily routine. If you found this episode helpful, and I really hope you did, please do me a huge favor and like this video. Your likes truly help our podcast reach more amazing learners just like you. Also, comment below with your biggest listening challenge or even a specific listening success story you've had. I love reading them, and they inspire future episodes. And of course, please subscribe to Best English Podcast so you don't miss any of our daily tips, lessons, and inspiring stories. Your support truly helps us grow and continue creating valuable content for the Best English Podcast community. Keep listening, keep learning, and always remember, every single moment you dedicate to truly listening in English is a vital, powerful step closer to your ultimate goal of effortless communication. Until next time, happy listening.